Hello and welcome everybody to Freedom Tech Friday. For those of you that are new here, allow me to quickly explain what this is all about and why the hell we are here. Freedom Tech Friday is a weekly live and interactive show hosted on the Ungovernable Misfits, X, Noster and YouTube feeds. And we go live for 1 hour every Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern or 2 p.m. in the UK. But you can, of course, catch up later on the Ungovernable Misfits podcast feed. On Freedom Tech Friday, we like to cover the latest news and trends for anything relating to freedom technologies. That could be anything from Bitcoin or Monero, encrypted messengers, privacy tools, and everything in between. Essentially, if there's a news item, tool, or topic that can help you take back some control in today's digital panopticon, we want to talk about it. My name's Q&A, and I'm Head of Customer Experience at Foundation, where we build Bitcoin-focused sovereignty tools. And as always, I am joined by my good friends Max, the head honcho of the Ungovernable Misfits Empire, and Seth, who is VP at Cake Wallet. As I mentioned, this show is live and interactive, and we rely on you guys to steer us towards the topics you want us to cover or to send us the Freedom Tech related questions that you want answering. There's loads of ways in which you can get involved, all of which really help spread awareness for the show. This includes commenting or getting your questions in the live chat, submitting your topics or questions ahead of time on X or Noster, boosting the show on Fountain or other podcasting 2.0 apps, sending in your questions or tips via Bitcoin or Monero at xmrchat.com, and finally just sharing the show with your friends on X or Noster. Top support for last week's show on home automation comes from our good friend Leach Days Hoddle, who sent 8,008 sats and said, I hope you're sitting down for this one, by the way, guys. How can we film an MTV Cribs style show with Bitcoiner houses without doxing locations or faces? Can Home Assistant help with that? I also used to have these automated lights and quickly realized that I didn't want to deal with it have it phoning home. For lights automation, I'd much easier to install an analog option like a motion sensor switch on the wall to replace the manual switch, like a bathroom occupancy switch, which turns on the lights for 30 minutes when you walk in. So unless you take a really long shit, then the light and fan will turn off after you finish your business and leave. If you get stuck watching videos or doom scrolling, then just a simple wave of the hand will turn it back on. I'm sure we've all been in that situation before. I had this happen to me once in college where I was in a stall and the light turned off in the bathroom while I was in there and the sensor couldn't see me. It didn't turn back on until the next person walked in and was surprised that I was shitting in the dark. Or in my shed when I can't get fucking miners to work and I'm staring at the computer, then the lights turn off. So I typically use that as an indicator that I need another beer and walk over to trigger the lights again. Sorry for the long boost on your short 1 hour long show. I've sent some extra sats. Thank you for your support, Late Stage Huddle, and Max, Seth, welcome to the show. How's it going?
Better now after hearing that story. That's
kind of set the bar for like how the quality of boost I want to see on Freedom Tech Friday, because that was spectacular.
Yeah, that was lovely. Really like that. The idea about the MTV Cribs, though, I think that might need some more thought there, mate. We might have a few $20 wrench attacks.
Seth, you're back with us after your 1 week hiatus. How's it going?
I am. It is going well. I like that he got about a word per sat going there with that boost. So that was a good one. I mean, we all have done that though. I don't know. That's how some bathrooms have been for my jobs in the past, where you're sitting in there and the lights go off and you just cry inside. Eventually, someone comes in though and saves you. But
to be honest, at this stage of life, like especially being a dad, taking a shit is like the best part of my day. It's the one part where it's peaceful and I can just go, I've got 10 minutes here. Maybe not half an hour. We've got 10 minutes here of just calm and peace.
Is it peaceful? I feel like they can sense when you think it's going to be peaceful, and then all hell breaks loose right then.
That is true.
Maybe that's just me.
I always find, again, as a dad, that I've never been more in demand than the exact moment that I need to use the bathroom.
Yeah.
It's always the way. You sit down, your ass touches that seat, and it's like, Dad.
The screaming, the crying immediately.
Yes.
It's inevitable.
All of a sudden, there's 85 jobs that need doing.
Too real.
Indeed. Anyway, this week we don't have a specific topic to talk about. We are having, as the title suggests, a big question bonanza thank you very much to everybody that got involved across X and Nostr submitting your questions ahead of time. As is always the case, we have way more than we can get through. And as is always the case as well, is if you're in the live chat, you will take precedent if you want to drop your questions in. Anything Freedom Tech related, there's no strict topic this week. So if you want the guys to cover off anything specific, please let us know in the live chat. But with that said, oh, look, Dad's in the chat. Hi, John. Nice to see you.
Hello, Dad.
Oh, honourable mention as well to the Nostr live stream. We have some boosts coming. Bon, friend of the show, 2,345 sats already, and Ex-Patriotic straight in there with the first boost with 5,000 sats. What a guy.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, what a man.
All right. First question on our list. Let me bring it up. Where are we? Comes from Mr. Tux over at Cake Wallet. And he wants our thoughts on the Cashew, quote, Bitcoin for Signal fork, which came about, I think it was yesterday. This is very hot off the press news. I'll set the scene, I guess, first before handing it over to you guys. But from what I can see, basically, some Bitcoiners have forked Signal, which is open source, and they have included Bitcoin payments, specifically Cashew Bitcoin payments within that, so that you can have like a what appears to be, I haven't tested it, quite kind of a nice experience where you can just fling some sats around to various people within DMs or group chats, and also means that you don't have to use the shitcoin crap that I believe is still in Signal. Is that right, Seth? Is that still there?
It is shockingly in there. I've never seen or heard anyone ever use it, but
Yeah,
it is
exactly.
in there.
So I'll kick it off, because what do I think of it? I think as a technical, from a tech perspective, I think it's interesting. I'd much rather see something like this than some altcoin that has no kind of underlying value prop. So I like that the fact that they've done it Bitcoin centric. Although frequent listeners to the show won't be surprised to hear me say that it's a bit of a shame that it's done on Cashew, although I can see why the people behind it may have done it, because they don't have to worry about all of the technical hurdles of doing things the way I would prefer from a more of a purist view of doing it non-custodially. The obvious one would be Lightning, but as we know, lots of hurdles with doing that in a non-custodial way. Maybe in the future there's a way in which we can do something with Arc or Spark, and we've got one of the industry's hottest Arc/Spark influencers in the chat that I'm sure will be able to elaborate a little bit more. But yeah, I think it's interesting. Would I rather they do this than what's already in there? Yeah, absolutely. It's Bitcoin centric. So yeah, we'll see if it gains adoption. What about you guys?
I answered Tux on Twitter, I think, but basically it's not generally a fan of non-custodial stuff if we can avoid it. But it is better, as you say, than having some random token that's not tied to Bitcoin in any way. And it's also better than something like Wallet of Satoshi, which is what sort of half of the fucking Bitcoiners, so-called Bitcoiners you see on Twitter and shillfluencers and everything use. So it could be much, much worse. I'm not upset about it, but I'm not also as excited as I would be if it was self-custodial Lightning or something like that.
Yeah, it's I'll try not to get too much on my soapbox. It's it's interesting. I love the general idea of trying to bring Bitcoin to apps that are not wallets. Like I think Breeze have done a really good job pushing on this. Roy from Breeze specifically has done a lot of writing on this concept of like, we need to get out of this box of money only belongs in a wallet, and that there really should be ways that you can easily send and receive money in apps that you use, especially social apps. But obviously the downside here is it's using Cashew, which does provide good privacy, but obviously completely sacrifices custody to a single custodian as well. So it's not even like a Fediment or something like that, where there's a set of guardians or a set of custodians that share custody using the multisig, but it's just a single custodian doing this. So like the privacy is very cool, and it's frustrating to me that in Bitcoin, a lot of the choices today are either do custodial but have good privacy, or do self-custodial but have poor privacy. but that is the way that a lot of things have kind of fallen in the Bitcoin and Lightning landscapes. But I think we're getting better and better from a privacy perspective of the self-custodial options. I mean, really, I would love to just see this be probably using Spark. Breeze, their new SDK, is using Spark on the back end, is quite straightforward to implement and would let people have their own keys. And the really nice thing about Signal is users already have accounts and they already have some account metadata that's backed up encrypted with Signal. So like you're able to restore your account. It has your profile info, the picture that you set, that sort of thing. If you move to a new phone, you could very easily just back up your private keys as part of that too. It would be encrypted. It's not really a concern because again, it's small amounts. So you're not giving up custody. You're retaining that custody for yourself, but you're using the existing phone number backup system that exists today for Signal. And you could do that and have a really good user experience. You wouldn't have as good a privacy as if you were using Cashew, but you would still have quite good privacy, and that will hopefully get a lot better. Spark guys have promised a lot of good privacy improvements. The folks at Arc, especially Arc Labs, have been talking about privacy improvements as well. So I think like I would much rather it be built on that. But the real honest truth about this is like it's really easy to buy into the hype of the way that this has been tweeted about, but this has nothing to do with Signal, the actual project, or the apps that you can download on your phone. This is a fork where they've built this functionality and they're just hoping that Signal themselves will implement this. I don't see that happening. The last thing that I'll quickly say, the main downside for Signal themselves and why I think there's a lot of like broken thinking about this idea of Cashew. Like there's so much hype around it and integrating it into lots of different things and pushing organizations like Blue Sky and Signal to adopt it. But no one ever talks about this, like who's going to run the mints problem? Like,
don't ask that question.
Yeah, I know. You're not allowed to ask that part. But like, is Signal going to suddenly go through the regulatory hurdles of becoming a money services business and custody all the coins of their users, or do they not want to do that? As I assume they probably don't want to do that. Like everyone else who you actually talk to behind the scenes doesn't want to run a mint, and then they'll want someone else to. But then are you going to be trusting some random anon in his garage running a Cashew mint with all of your Signal users? No, you're not going to do that either. So you just continue to get stuck in this, like, you need a Goldilocks solution for Cashew that I just think doesn't exist for like who will actually custody, who will either become a regulated entity and thus a custodian, or will avoid becoming that and have to live in a jurisdiction where Signal can never prosecute them if they rug their users or something. There's so many like actual things when you peer behind the veil of how does this actually work, it falls apart quickly. But the general idea of having Lightning specifically in Signal is amazing, and I think should happen, and is a great fit for something like Breeze's Spark SDK, I think, and would be yet another good push to the Spark guys to implement better and better privacy as they've promised.
Yeah, great overview there. Appreciate that. A quick baited question here for either of you from the Nostr chat, which you guys won't see unless you're monitoring it. Comes from Remnant, and he says, who gives a fuck about a $70 wallet in Cashew that some guy can rug me on? What would your answer to that be, guys?
Someone whose life savings is $70 and they earn £3 a week, or somebody who doesn't have $70 is different to different people. I mean, it means absolutely nothing to someone very wealthy, and it means a hell of a lot to someone who hasn't got a lot. And it's kind of also not really the point. It's how are we building and where are we focusing our time and energy? And if you're just building things to only be okay in theory for $70 but not more, and that have these potential regulatory problems, and that someone has to be in the middle and can potentially be prosecuted for money laundering or whatever fucking bullshit they want to throw at them, I just feel like, personally, I just think that there are potentially better uses of funds and time.
Yeah, and I think, like, for me, the bigger issue is not, like, will it ruin you to have your Bitcoin, like, your spending money stolen? Like, for most people who are going to be listening to this, probably not. Like, you're going to have $50 in there. It wouldn't be the end of the world. The bigger problem is almost all of these solutions, like where people want to put Cashew, is in places where people are not normally Bitcoiners. So like the goal with Cashew and Signal would be suddenly you get 100 million people onboarded to Bitcoin or exposed to Bitcoin for the first time, or maybe it's the first time they've actually been able to sit and receive it with other people because they don't know other people who actually have wallets. And that's the biggest problem here, is not necessarily that they'd lose money, but that if these people's first exposure to Bitcoin ends in 6 months or a year with the money that they've sent and received to friends all going away and disappearing, what do you think their takeaway about Bitcoin is going to be? Yes, if it goes perfectly, that's great. But if there's any issue, and as a reminder, Cashew is a single custodian. It doesn't necessarily have to be malice. They could just screw up and fuck over their server, or have a fire in their data center, or have some mistake where the data center decommissions the wrong server, and suddenly everyone's money is gone. It's something where, like, I'm more worried about the user experience for someone who their only use of Bitcoin is this, or their first exposure to Bitcoin is this. And then if they get rugged and then go, okay, so my Bitcoin can just be stolen anytime. Like, I thought it was mine. I thought the whole point of this was self-custody and sovereignty. And maybe they don't understand that they actually had to do something else to get that self-custody. But yeah, I'm more concerned with what this would do to people's perception of using Bitcoin and crypto more generally if something were to happen. And it's quite easy for something bad to happen, even accidentally.
Love it. Thank you very much, guys. Question from Dad in the chat. He's relaying a question from a Meshtadelian. Like that's a nice word, Meshtadelian, named Sam. Are there any zapping experts in here? Max, I'm looking at you. Is it possible to connect a BTC Pay server internal Lightning node for zapping? I installed the Nostr plugin for BTC Pay, but I feel like I am missing something. I think you've already had the answer, from Bon in the chat. He mentions that they need to get their Nostr wallet connect string from the BTC Pay and paste that into their Nostr client. I believe in the settings of BTC Pay, it should give you that required string, and then you can go and paste that into any compatible Nostr client. I know for a fact Primal and Amethyst will accommodate said string. So hope that helps. But tell Sam, whoever Sam is, that he can send me a DM if he wants any specific help with that one. All right, guys, 20 minutes in and we've got one question ticked off the list. So we're staying true to form here. Next one comes from Dune Messias over on Nostr, and they said, what's the most underrated part of Bitcoin's tech stack that most plebs overlook? I will answer this first because I get to see all the questions first. So I've had a little bit of time to think about it, and I'll give you guys a few minutes to conjure up an answer. But mine would be, and I apologize if you see this as a boring one, but it would probably be BIP39, the seed word standard, because everybody takes it for granted. And it's just kind of the default way to use literally any Bitcoin wallet on the entire market. And people take it for granted of the power that it gives them. You know, it's essentially a universal backup that prevents any vendor lock-in from any wallet ever. You can take your Bitcoin wherever, whenever. And it also has the nice benefit that you don't have to deal with individual private keys like OGs that were far earlier into the space than all three of us would have had to deal with, where they had literal kind of text files with individual private keys for all of their addresses, which, as you can imagine, is a bit of a headache to deal with and manage. So I guess, yeah, underrated because of what it enables, and overlooked because it's just part of the furniture now. It's just the default way that most people use Bitcoin, and is arguably the most powerful aspect of kind of self-custody and or the enablement that it provides self-custody. But what about you, Max, Seth?
I underrated, because I've underrated it for a long time, is BIP85. I actually think that that's like child seeds, especially when you're the Bitcoiner in a group or family, or you're testing loads of stuff all the time. I think that's really nice, and it's something that I massively overlooked for a long time.
So give us the TLDR for anybody who has no idea what BIP85 is.
So if you were to say you're running a passport and you thought, I want to spin up a new mobile wallet for yourself or your sister or friend or someone, and you think like, okay, the person that I'm spinning this up for, we're probably going to not back this up properly and could potentially lose it. you can, from within your passport, create as many of these like sub wallets as you want, and that will give you the ability to spin up for friends and family. And if anyone loses their wallet and they're like, oh my god, I had, you know, whatever amount of money on there, and I wrote the things down, but I can't remember where, or my dog ate the paper, or whatever stupid shit they come up with, you know, okay, they're number 5 in my list of BIP85 child seeds, and then you can just restore it from there, because you have, as long as you have your master seed, your 24-word backup, you have all the other ones that you generate. You can generate, I believe, as many as you want. So it could be for all your friends and family, your kids, your mum, your dad, whatever. And you want to spin one, you put a cake wallet, you want to set that up, you can do it from there. So you don't have a separate backup for that. It's just, I think it's really underrated.
I'll double down on that too, and then I'll add my own. So a really nice thing, and I'll shamelessly shill Cake Wallet here, is you could use a BIP85 seed, like a 12-word seed from Passport, and you could use that to create all of your wallets in Cake Wallet. It doesn't even have to be just
exactly
Bitcoin.
What I did.
No, I'm not, but it could be Monero. Yeah, it could be Ethereum. It can be whatever you use. Obviously, most people are probably going to be doing Bitcoin, but it is pretty fantastic. Then now you can do all of them, which has been a fun thing that we've added. It's not just Bitcoin like it used to be. And then as for mine, I think the most underrated part that I think some of those of us in the space use, but isn't as common, is accounts for Bitcoin. So just the ability to have one wallet, one seed phrase, and have separate accounts for different purposes is really, really useful. Doing things like separating out KYC, no KYC Bitcoin, maybe having a separate account for accepting donations. It gives you a lot of flexibility in like how you split up your funds to make sure that different things for different purposes don't get all blended together, but without meaning that you have to have yet another backup to store. Is a really powerful feature that I would love to see people use more often, and to see more wallets implement. It's something we don't have in Cake Wallet right now, actually. So you can rag on me and harass me on Twitter about that. But we do have some very exciting things that are account related that are in the works right now. And accounts will be a first-class citizen of Cake Wallet. # soon.
2 weeks, TM.
Good question. Not 2 weeks, but I wish.
Yeah, good question, that one. Thank you, June Messias. Next one comes from Bitter21 over on Nostr, and they said, if I want to spend Bitcoin obtained via KYC, could I use eCash, like Cashew, to spend it in a privacy-preserving way? Short answer is yes, it would give you a good base level of privacy in terms of forward privacy, should I say, like when you enter the mint. Let's say the exchange, I don't know, pick a name, Coinbase, they wouldn't necessarily be easily able to see where you've spent those funds out of the mint. You know, it could be via Lightning, it could be another on-chain transaction back out of the mint afterwards, after a short period of time or a long period of time. But as always, and many people will have heard me say this many times, it simply doesn't and cannot erase the KYC record of you purchasing that Bitcoin off Coinbase in this scenario. So yes, you'll get a good kind of forward privacy, albeit with the custodial caveats that we've just talked about for the past 10 minutes. So also worth bearing that in mind, as well as the privacy aspect of this. But yeah, you still ain't getting rid of the fact that Coinbase knows you bought X amount of Bitcoin on this date for this exchange rate, yada, yada, yada. So my alternative advice would be try to purchase via a no KYC option, because you're already starting 10 steps ahead of the competition. Essentially, you're making yourself not the lowest hanging fruit. But I guess to summarize and to answer your question, yes, it would give you a little bit of privacy. Well, it would give you a good level of privacy. You know, I think we're all aligned here that Cashew and similar technologies do give good privacy, but with some quite big caveats and trade-offs in terms of custody. But disagree with anything I've said there, guys, or anything to add?
I'll just pull on one little thread. One thing to keep in mind is that, like, if you're sending on-chain Bitcoin into the mint, you should assume that that entity knows that you've sent it into that mint. Like, I'm sure that especially as eCash usage grows, the the wallet clustering for popular mints is 100% going to be done by Chainalysis, etc. And they're going to know when funds flow into a mint. Now, obviously, the beauty of eCash is that within the mint, you have near perfect privacy, but entities will still know when you move into the mint because on-chain Bitcoin reveals a lot of information about you, unfortunately. And if you try to use it just as like this like pass-through privacy layer and you withdraw immediately on-chain, or you withdraw the same amount a while later on-chain, and there's not a lot of other people withdrawing roughly the same amount, it can also be quite trivial to do like timing and amount heuristics to trace that through. So I say this about every kind of like interim layer that people talk about using. People ask me all the time about like, can I do this with Monero? Like, can I swap Bitcoin for Monero and then back to Bitcoin? And does that fix all my privacy problems? No, unfortunately, unless you're a perfectly random human, which I'm not, and you can do properly random amounts and random timing. So I wouldn't assume it gives you perfect privacy, but it's certainly better privacy than you would have otherwise. It would be best if you can do then your payments out via Lightning. But unfortunately, again, in Cashew, you're not the one creating the routes, as far as I know, in any Cashew wallet. So the Cashew mint would know, or more specifically, the Lightning service provider or the gateway for that Cashew mint would know where that payment is going within Lightning as well, unless you're using Bolt 12. So short answer is it's a long answer because it's complex. Not perfect, but it is an okay way to gain some privacy.
All right, next question comes from the Nosta live chat. It's Remnant again. And he said, where have the BTC gift cards gone? I can't find them anywhere these days. And as a follow-up, I had him clarify that he means gift cards containing Bitcoin, not kind of going to CakePay or to Bitrefill to exchange Bitcoin for an Amazon gift card per se. I would suggest, I agree, I haven't seen them. I mean, there weren't that many in the UK in the first place, but I would imagine that they've probably just been regulated out of existence. However, I will caveat that by saying that I've seen something recently with Fold maybe doing something like this. I'm sure I've seen some tweets about this. I don't have any more context than, there you go. Seth has just dropped a link in the Twitter chat, foldapp.com/Bitcoin gift card. Do we know any more information about that? Is it as good as it sounds? Like you just walk in, hand over some cash and get some Bitcoin?
I wasn't sure as I started reading through the link that I just sent. And to redeem it, you have to have a Fold account registered and verified, which does that mean you have to KYC? I don't know. So. I have not ever used Fold, but I think that they are KYC. So the fact that they say account registration and verification is a little concerning.
So they get you on the way in to redeem it, basically.
I guess so, but I don't want to say that for sure because I haven't actually used these, but it is the only like Bitcoin containing gift card that I know of that exists today.
I think you could do it yourself, to be honest. You could either do a paper wallet or you could do something like, write a card and have like a little QR scan or something that takes them to a download of a wallet and just say, download this, ping me, and I'll send you this amount of Bitcoin. Like you could do it in a slightly more manual way and give them KYC free Bitcoin, which is a much better place for them to start and learn with.
Yeah.
Or I don't know if, maybe not our favorite person, but whether Rodolfo still does those, what were they called? Open dime things. They were quite cool.
Yeah, I think doing it peer-to-peer is achievable. Like you can get things, the BTC Pay has a similar functionality and stuff, but I think what Remnant was asking was like, where can he go to a store and just exchange some cash or for Bitcoin? What about Azteco? Are they still going?
I was just literally about to say that. They were in the UK for about 5 minutes, weren't they, in Asda or something?
Yeah, it didn't last very long. Know. Yeah, check out Azteco, azte.co, I believe is the URL. Quite popular, or used to be quite popular in South America. Used to have some vendors in Europe, but I don't know on the status of that project at the moment. It seemed to be, I believe, maybe having some difficulties with like regulation and stuff.
What's his name? Who was behind that? Was it
Beauty on, I think.
Yeah, the one that likes to block everyone.
Yes, yeah. That was it.
There you go. Check the Twitter chat. aztec.co. There you go. And I believe they've still got a map on there that shows you where it's available. And judging by Seth's comment, big sad that there's 0 in the US, unfortunately.
It seems like I can buy them digitally now.
Right, but I've gone. I haven't actually gone all the way, but any of those merchants will ask you for ID when you do that.
Okay.
Yeah. And obviously, if it's online, you're gonna have to give your card details anyway.
Yeah, the merchant seemed a little odd. So
there you go. BTC Wrestle is confirming as well. I believe Azteco is KYC. Yeah, I believe it also was big in Africa. BTC Wrestle, you're right. So just creeping regulations, unfortunately, seem to be taking down all of those awesome options that we used to have maybe like 4 to 5 years ago. Okay, this next question is for you, Seth. Cortic on X was asking, when whirlpooling cake, we need one pool liquidity. The bigger the pools, easier to hide in it.
I definitely want better privacy tools for Bitcoin and Cake. Whirlpool is one that I don't foresee us doing anytime soon for 2 reasons. I mean, one is the obvious regulatory one. Samurai guys took a plea deal and thus a conviction of this. I don't think I want to put our company on the line to run Whirlpool when people can access that through Ashigaru and other solutions. So from a regulatory perspective, it's just not something we can reasonably do right now. Hopefully that will change, but that's the primary reason. The secondary one is mainly that a Whirlpool or any type of coin join on mobile is really, really difficult. Specifically on iOS is basically impossible. But even on Android is quite difficult to do in a way that's user-friendly, just because of how long it takes between rounds and how complicated the signing process in rounds is if your internet isn't perfect. So it's something that's difficult anyways, but it's just kind of a non-starter right now, thanks to our glorious regulatory overlords.
Yeah, pragmatic approach, really. As much as I would love to see many Whirlpool clients as we used to have, but I can completely understand why you guys are taking a very cautious approach. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Awesome question, actually, and I'm really glad you asked this one, Vibrant, because I wanted to quiz the guys on this one. And he says, have we tried out the Aqua Dolphin card? Now, for those that aren't aware what Vibrant's talking about, this is a virtual Visa debit card within the Aqua app. Aqua, for those of you that don't know, is the liquid-based app that also speaks Lightning and on-chain Bitcoin, but I believe all of your funds are held on the Liquid network in Aqua under the hood. So just take that in mind as to if you want to use this. I downloaded the app the other day because I saw about the this. It's got a 4,000 USD monthly limit. From what I can see, I haven't used it yet. There's no KYC involved, which is obviously a good thing. Haven't tested it. I would love to hear if anybody has tested this out, because it seems like if it is as good as it looks on the surface, that it could be a bit of a game changer in terms of spending Bitcoin. Specifically online. This is a virtual card only. You can't add it to Apple or Google Pay at the moment, so you can't just go into a physical brick and mortar store and start spending this. So you can only use it online. But as we all know, you can buy most of your shit online these days. I believe also as well in the T's and C's, I saw that it's not available to US customers. But that's the TLDR. My only open question here, and I'd imagine Seth is best placed to answer this, is I've heard many stories of people having these types of cards rejected online. Is there any rhyme or reason as to why these things might get rejected, or is it kind of a bit random at the moment?
So these reloadable cards are usually much better in terms of acceptance and not having issues with rejection. I've dug into this a lot because we've been trying to offer something similar in CakePay, and it's definitely doable, and doable in a way that's good. I think the main downside to the Dolphin card, like you mentioned, is that you can't use it in Google or Apple Pay, so you're limited to not using it in store. But there are solutions to that. I've been working with somebody on the CakePay side where we're hoping to offer essentially a similar offering, but with Google Pay and Apple Pay. accepted. It just, you can't do it in the US. There's a specific regulation that talks about how these open loop or closed loop cards can be done. And you're limited in how you do the closed loop cards, which are the prepaid ones where you get a card for $1,000, for instance, and you just spend it to zero and then you throw it away. But the reloadable ones just basically aren't possible in the US. So we're always going to have that restriction. That's the same for the Dolphin card, like you mentioned, Q. But it seems really cool. Like you said, surprisingly non-KYC. And that is thankfully, again, something you can do outside the US with these reloadable cards. There's not a requirement to KYC, which is good. But I'm excited to see more of this kind of become common, and I hope that this will become something that's possible to do in the US as well, but would require some legal changes, unfortunately.
Yeah, there's just two final things I want to say about this. Number one, I when I was like downloading it and looking at where it was available and the T's and C's and stuff, the fact that it's not available in the US, but it is available in the UK, like normally it's the flip reverse of that. And also, yeah, exactly. And also, I believe that these are non-reversible. So once the funds are on there, you have to kind of spend them back off, so to speak. And if you do find yourself in a jurisdiction where it's difficult to spend them, again, I have no idea what it works like in the UK, then you could find yourself kind of with the funds stuck on there. Although I'm sure you'd eventually find a merchant online that would take it. So if you are going to try this, maybe just try it out with some small purchases first, so you don't get like $4,000 worth of Bitcoin or liquid or whatever locked up on a card that you then can't spend for whatever reason. So just tread carefully, and it's something that I'm interested in testing out myself as well.
Yeah, I'll make one quick call out too. If you are in the US, I would highly recommend not trying to circumvent this with VPNs or Tor or something like that. You very likely will lose your money. These vendors are usually very, very strict about these geo restrictions, and they can, like you said, once you put money on the card, if it's clear that you're circumventing it and you're doing it from a jurisdiction they don't support, it's very likely you could lose your money. So please be cautious with that. Don't try to circumvent it if you're in the US. Just don't bother.
Okay, next question comes from Filthy Fiat Wallet over on Nostr. Great name. Haven't dug into silent payments yet. I know I've been hearing about them. Can you please give a short summary? I would first signpost you to the Bitcoin brief, which I believe is being released tomorrow. Correct me if I'm wrong, Max, where you and I did a bit of a deep dive and a comparison on silent payments and Bit47. So
might even be today.
Yeah, I'll keep this brief because you've gone to the question, the trouble of asking us a question. I'll give a brief overview, and then Seth's going to tell me where I got it wrong. So silent payments.
All wrong, totally wrong. Not even close.
Yeah, so silent payments essentially are a reusable static address that you can use to interact with Bitcoin. It's basically, you can have it in QR code format or as a text string that has the prefix SP1. And anybody with a silent payment compatible wallet, which includes Spiral Wallet now for sending and Cake Wallet for sending and receiving, and some more wallets that Seth's going to cover off afterwards. With any of those wallets, people don't need to interact directly with you to request an invoice or an address. Presumably, you will have this silent payment address or QR code posted somewhere on your Twitter account, your Nostr account, or in your bio or on your website, wherever, YouTube account. And that's it in terms of interactivity. Anybody with a compatible silent payment wallet can then just scan that QR code or paste in your silent payment address. That's when all the magic under the hood happens, which I won't go into because I said I was going to keep it brief. But essentially, the two silent payment compatible wallets, the sender's silent payment wallet will be able to derive a unique Bitcoin address, which I believe is Taproot only, and will send Bitcoin to that Taproot address without needing to contact you, speak to you, or have any direct interaction with you in any way, shape, or form. And anybody who knows the Taproot address cannot link it back to you as the original kind of silent payment address owner. And that process is repeatable. So if the same person wanted to pay you again, I believe they would be able to generate a new address and so on and so forth. And what that means for you as the recipient then basically is that you're able to receive to brand new addresses from 1 or a million people, all to separate addresses without having to interact with anybody or to have to run a server a la BTC Pay server, which is the traditional way to kind of be online as surface new addresses to each person that wants to interact with you. Seth, how did I do?
You nailed it. I don't really have anything else to add. Yeah, people can dig into your episode for more, but you have become proud.
Did I miss any of the any popular wallets that also have it? Sparrow and Cake are the big ones, obviously.
Yeah, there's not really any other popular ones. On the sending side, there's also a hardware wallet, the Bitbox O2, that does have the ability to send to silent payments wallets. That's the only one, as far as I know, on the hardware wallet side. But on the software wallet side, there is a new wallet that's built to be silent payments only called Dana Wallet. That's been around and been iterating and has just gone to supporting mainnet fairly recently, which you can definitely check out. The people behind it are awesome. But that one is it's very much built to be a silent payments only wallet, not even just a Bitcoin only wallet, but the only address format it supports is silent payments, which is cool, especially if your use case is just receiving donations. It's a bit simplified because you don't have to worry about generating new addresses or derivation paths or anything like that. But they are doing good work over there.
Okay. All right. Next question on the list comes from friend of the show, BTC Wrestle, over on Nostr. And he wants to know, what is each of our favorite mobile wallet and why? On-chain and Lightning. So one of each. He personally likes Ashigaru and Zeus. They're the go-tos. I'm going to throw a spanner in the works here and say that I'm not allowed to say Envoy, and Seth, you're not allowed to say Cake. So, Max, I'll hand it to you first while Seth frantically thinks of an alternative. And
are there other wallets? Hold on, I thought there were only Cake and Envoy.
So, favorite Lightning wallet, favorite on-chain wallet. Max, over to you first.
If I can't say Cake or Envoy, I've got to say Wallet of Satoshi. It's just so good. I like the cypherpunk ethos. No, obviously Ashigaru for me. If I'm using anything outside of Cake for most things, it's Ashigaru. And Lightning, I do use Zeus. I just generally have problems with anything Lightning, but if I'm using something, I would use Zeus.
All right. Seth?
I would say generally for, I don't even know what I would say for an on-chain mobile wallet other than Cake, honestly. But for Lightning, I'd say Phoenix. It's just the best possible self-custodial Lightning wallet in terms of usability.
Have that apply to both, couldn't you? Because it speaks both through swaps.
You could, yeah. You can technically use it for both. You'll have some disadvantages in that any on-chain payment is spliced out of your channel, so it reveals your channel to the person that you're paying. They're not yet using Taproot channels. I think soon they will, but so it does in some ways have some worse privacy for on-chain than a normal on-chain wallet. But you absolutely can use it for both. I mean, I know some people also still use Moon Wallet for that because it's just stupid simple, and in the current fee market, it works for quote unquote Lightning as well. But yeah, I'd probably say Phoenix generally.
All right, awesome. Yeah, good call outs for both of those. Mine personally will be Zeus for Lightning because it connects to my node remotely or locally. I've also got an LSP connection there as well as a fallback in case I'm at a conference and I want to spend via Lightning and my nodes fell over. On-chain mobile wallets, honestly, I don't really. Anytime I need to spend Bitcoin, generally it's with Lightning from my own node. So I don't use on-chain wallets all that often. And when I do interact on-chain, it's with a Passport as my cold storage wallet with Sparrow. So it's kind of difficult to recommend one that I use regularly. But I guess if I was pushed, I'd probably say Ashigaru just because it's so feature rich and has the kind of samurai legacy there, so that you've got all of the additional spending tools in there as well. Good question. I like that one. Okay, Seth, this one comes back over to you, and it comes from Gwydion on Nostr, and he said, can you walk through the privacy trade-off of gift cards? And additional to what's on-chain in the show notes, visible only to me, there is some follow-up questions, but I'll let you hit the first one first, just at a high level, kind of what the loose trade-offs are of gift cards. And obviously, if you want to apply this strictly to CakePay, feel free to do so, because obviously you're most well-versed in that.
Yeah, so It kind of depends on who you're caring about privacy from. Specifically, I know the question says, does a merchant know you bought this gift card with crypto? And the answer is no. The merchant or the person who the gift card actually can be redeemed at doesn't learn anything about who purchased the card or where they purchased it. It's coming from an upstream supplier through Cake Pay. We're the ones taking crypto. There's no kind of upstream relation of this info, so you do gain very good privacy from the merchant. They just know you're a gift card user. They don't have any information about where specifically you come from. Now, it's not like there's some cryptographic like privacy here. So in theory, like you could link back if all of the entities talk together, you could link back from gift card to crypto payment. Because all that information did happen at some point. So like it is theoretically possible to link those things, but normally the merchant doesn't know anything, not even that you paid with crypto, much less who you are. So it does have good kind of, you can kind of say it's like VPN style privacy where you're just trusting all the entities not to log. And thankfully in this instance, you're also trusting them not to collude, because you would need to collude between the upstream supplier, Cake Pay themselves, and the merchant to get any kind of idea of how the gift card was purchased. And then obviously the icing on top is if you're paying with something like Lightning or Monero, we don't know anything about even your financial activity, much less your identity. So it does have very good privacy in general there.
Yeah, a couple of follow-up questions. He said, does Cake Pay and Bitrefill work the same, or are there any differences?
They're essentially the same. I would say Cake Pay, we generally have a much larger selection, but our redemption process isn't quite as smooth as Bitrefill's. Obviously, we're working to improve that. And the Bitrefill have a much smaller selection, especially when it comes to debit cards. But they've really honed their redemption process. It's super, super slick. Like, kudos to them. They've done a really good job with that. But under the hood, it's essentially the same. And then I can quickly answer the last one too. Why does Cake Pay refuse Tor connections? So unfortunately, I don't know if it's because we're in the Monero ecosystem or just something that everyone experiences, but we are basically always under massive DDoS attacks, usually via the Tor network, not always, but usually via the Tor network. So we have to implement some DDoS protection that blocks Tor exit nodes most of the time. It's an unfortunate downside of people using a really good tool like Tor to do bad things. And if we don't block Tor exit nodes, we have downtime for everybody else. So unfortunately, there's not really a workaround for that. The other main thing I'll say is that especially with the debit cards, doing that over Tor or VPN, there are a lot of problems with it. And we'll make people check boxes to say that they're not using VPN or Tor when they go to redeem them. Because again, they're very strict from a regulatory perspective on where people actually are, and the cards actually only work in specific jurisdictions. So people circumventing those geo restrictions with a VPN will just end up hurting themselves more than it will hurt anybody else. So that's like a side thing, but the main reason why sometimes you can't use Cake Pay at all over Tor is because it definitely means that we're undergoing a major DDoS attack and having to limit Tor access as a result of that.
All right, appreciate that one. We've got a question in the Nostal Live chat from Remnant, and he said, do we need more smaller conferences focused on circular economy issues and growth? I would say yes. However, the problem is that those aren't very sexy topics and they don't sell many tickets, which is why you don't see as many of them around the globe as maybe we would like. With that said, there are a couple of good ones. I know the one I've just been to in Madrid was a much smaller affair, and there was some great sort of similar topics discussed at that conference. And there's probably no more than a couple of thousand people at that conference. But yeah, I'd love to see more stuff like that, particularly talking about grassroots stuff. But unfortunately, the main demographic of Bitcoiners kind of likes to go and hear the usual talking heads give a presentation about how Bitcoin is, a digital battery or a mycelium or something like that. Unfortunately, that's what gets clicks and that's what sells tickets. So we do find ourselves in the minority. But guys, is there any alternative or similar conferences that cover this type of topic that you guys are aware of or have been to that we could recommend?
I would say Lake Satoshi is one where they've always got people not necessarily doing the talks, but who will discuss this type of stuff, and they've got like real grassroots people who really actually use Bitcoin and trade and all that kind of stuff. And then BTC, what's the Bitcoin one in Wales? I'm blanking now. With Dragon
The Bitcoin
doing
Retreat.
The Bitcoin Retreat, that had some really good ones. OpenOms did a couple of talks at one of them. They've always sort of leaned more towards privacy and security and stuff. So they're two that I can say are very good for that kind of stuff. And then there are lots of other smaller meetups as well that will focus on that. We have talked about doing some ungovernable material along with Cake and Foundation to actually have as presentations for some of the meetups. So if people are listening and you run a meetup, please reach out to us.
Yeah, the only thing I'll just generally add is there are a lot of small conferences that are like this, especially if you aren't requiring it to be like strictly Bitcoin only. Dark Prague is a really good example. It used to be called, it's kind of a reboot of Hackers Congress, Parallel Polis, in Prague, as the name suggests. And they've always, like the actual place that it's at, called Second Culture, accepts Bitcoin, Lightning, Monero, I think Litecoin as well, for everything. And they heavily push circular economies there. They always have really good talks and discussions around that. Same for MoneroCon and Monerotopia. I know it's not Bitcoin, but it's always all done in Monero. Every merchant accepts Monero. It's a big push there as well. So you generally have to go smaller if you want that type of thing, but there are some good, more cypherpunk, smaller conferences throughout the space that do push this and prioritize people getting talks and workshops and that sort of thing on actually accepting Bitcoin.
I think, yeah, to underline that basically is that they exist. You just, because they're much less funded, you just have to kind of keep your ear to the ground in the usual kind of communities to hear about them, because they don't have the few million in marketing budget that, say, the Vegas conference has, which is, everywhere that you look most of the times of the year. So, yeah, maybe check out the Lake Satoshi is a great one. Get yourself in the Meshtadel and get involved there. That would be a great starting point, and you'll probably hear about many other similar conferences and get-togethers from there as well. Next question, if I can find it in my list. I don't know whether this was a bit of a loaded question, but I feel like it'll be a good discussion anyway. Somebody that goes by Super Liminer on Noster said, thoughts on the Make Freedom Profitable presentation from Odell. I hadn't seen this until 10 minutes before the show. The quick TLDR about the presentation is basically it's just Matt talking about what 1031 does, what some of their portfolio companies do, and the need to make kind of profitable businesses that have a good, I guess, a good ethos, or that are well aligned with what we would traditionally consider like, an open and an honest company, so to speak. I didn't draw issue with anything that he said in there. I completely align with it, and it's good to see some VC capital go into some companies that are about open source and that are well principled, because it is an age-old difficult problem, and that we all want things to be completely open source, but that sometimes can make monetization quite difficult, particularly if you're not well funded from an early stage. It can make it difficult for you to compete. But yeah, I completely agree with the principles and everything that you talked about in there. And if we can make profitable companies that are truly open source and that support the ethos, then I'm all for it. I have no disagreement there. Clearly Foundation are well aligned with that. Everybody at the team is, and I know Cake does exactly the same. Everything that they produce is completely open source as well. So we're kind of preaching to the choir here a little bit, but hopefully that answers your question. Guys, I don't know whether you've seen the presentation or not. If you haven't and you've got nothing to add, just let me know.
Nope.
Nay, but
Okey-dokey.
I agree with your thoughts on it. Generally, we need to figure out a way to make these things profitable without ruining the ethos, which is a hard line to ride.
Certainly is. All right, I'm going to make this the last question for the show, and it comes from Sage Empire, and they ask, what is the biggest privacy mistake people make when trying to protect their privacy online? I will go first here while you guys have a quick think. And the most common thing I see is that people just try and do too much too quickly, get burnt out, and just think, fuck it, it's not even worth trying. So they'll go for, they'll switch to the Tor browser, they'll get a graphene phone, they'll try to go no KYC for all of their Bitcoin purchases or Monero purchases, and they'll quickly get bogged down, because doing all of that in one kind of fell swoop is quite a steep learning curve, depending on where how your background looks. So I would say that would be the most common pitfall. So what I would say is just take slow steps, seek the advice of people who've kind of done this thing before, because you can kind of take a little bit of a shortcut there and learn from the mistakes that I'm sure we've all made on this call. Very similar to the one I've just mentioned. Pick one, maybe two topics or areas that you want to improve. Maybe do like a bit of a prioritization exercise first and foremost to deem, where you might see your biggest privacy pitfalls, and just focus on one or two in the first instance. Get comfortable with those, make those kind of your run-of-the-mill thing, so that it's not so much of a mental burden for you, and then move on to the next thing. Because the truth of the matter is, like, it never ends. There's always new tools, there's always new hurdles to get over. So trying to take on everything immediately is going to lead to a quick downfall, and you getting very frustrated very, very quickly.
Yeah, agreed. I would also say email reuse is a big one, which like maybe people don't think about a lot. Like, you're signing up for newsletters and you're signing up for services and your email's all over the place. That's not ideal, and it's an easy one to fix. And then
so what would you,
one, I guess.
Sorry, just to dive in, quick advice then. What would you say as a quick fix? What would you recommend to people in that scenario?
Well, the most simple one, if you're running something, you've got like a Mac or something like that, and you're using their mail service, they actually have the option to just generate new emails for everything you sign up for. It will do, I can't remember what it's called, like hide my email, I think it is. So you can just create hide my emails, and at least then it's not using the same one. That's the simple way. Or you can do it in Proton. I think they limit you though, don't they, Proton, to like, is it 20 emails you can make? Or
they limit the addresses you can use, but they have email aliases via simple login now. I think even the free plan has a reasonable amount.
Okay.
Yeah,
so yeah,
I've never hit a limit.
Would be a good one.
Okay. Nice. All right. So, just in the interest of time, just hand it over to Seth before we sign off.
Yeah, I think a big one for me, and this maybe isn't the main audience, but maybe something to keep in mind, is a lot of people in the privacy space are like very anti-crypto, anti-Bitcoin, because they have like a broken conception of what it was back in the day and aren't willing to come around to it. And if you don't have the financial privacy piece, or even just the financial pseudonymity piece that like basic Bitcoin usage can give you, a lot of the other stuff falls apart very quickly. So I think just remembering that piece is important, but also just one piece of the whole.
Yeah, good point. It's easy to forget when you're in this space that a lot of people just don't use it, or just sort of like do all the other steps and VPNs and everything, and then you give over your card details and
yeah, undoes it quickly.
Yes,
indeed. All right, guys, that brings us to the end of the hour already. Flown by, as always. Thank you to everybody in the live chat. Thank you to everybody that pre-submitted your questions. Apologies to those that did pre-submit the questions and didn't get theirs answered. Your question will be added to the backlog, so keep your ear to the ground for future shows, because we will be pulling those from the backlog list to answer and make sure that you do not get forgotten about. This has been fun. Thank you very much for stopping by, and we will see you for more of the same at the same time next week. And don't forget to stick around and watch Max's awesome outro video. Have a good one, guys.
Thank you for listening to Freedom Tech Friday. To everyone who boosted, asked questions, and participated in the show, we appreciate you all. Make sure to join us next week on Friday at 9 a.m. EST and 2 p.m. London. Thanks to Seth, Max, and Q for keeping it ungovernable. And thank you to Cake Wallet, Foundation, and my NIM box for keeping the ungovernable misfits going. Make sure to check out ungovernablemisfits.com to see Mr. Crown's incredible skills and artwork. Listen to the other shows in the feed to hear Kareem's world-class editing skills. Thanks to Expatriotic for keeping us up to date with Boost's XMR chats and sending in topics. John, great name and great guy, never change and never stop keeping us up to date with mining news or continuing to grow the Meshtadel. Finally, a big thanks to the unsung hero, our Canadian overlord, Jordan, for trying to keep the ungovernable in check and for the endless work he puts in behind the scenes. We love you all. Stay ungovernable.